Namaskaram. The subject for discussion today is an unbiased review of J. Krishnamurti teachings. Many of you would have known J. Krishnamurti. He is a striking figure in the philosophical and spiritual field. So, before going into his teachings, let us briefly know about the personality of J. Krishnamurti, because without knowing the personality of any person, it's hard to reconcile his teachings. So, now let us go briefly through Krishnamurti's life. Krishnamurti is born into an Indian family, a South Indian Brahmin family, a very pious and orthodox family. In fact, he was a normal child. During his childhood, he was adopted by a theosophical society. They have seen a spark in his face and they have thought he will be useful for our mission. Their mission was to prepare a world teacher who provides guidance to the world. So, in the means of adapting Krishnamurti, they have adopted his brother Nitya also. They have taken them to abroad, to America, and that there the training was going on. Krishnamurti started enjoying a luxurious and comfortable life there with his brother Nitya. Over a period of time, Krishnamurti was assigned a task to go and give discourses on behalf of the Theosophical Society. During this time, around 1928, he was assigned with a task to go and give a discourse in India. At the same time, his brother Nitya falls sick. So Krishnamurti hesitates to go. He says, my brother Nitya is not keeping well. I cannot go leaving him like this. Then the theosophical teachers, they will assure him that the gods whom we adore, whom we admire, whom we worship, they will take care of Nitya. They will protect him. You do not worry. You just go and finish your work. While Krishnamurti was in his journey, the voyage to Mumbai, before he steps into the Indian land, he receives the news that Nitya is no more. Nitya has passed away. Krishnamurti breaks down. This is the turning point in Krishnamurti's life. A revolutionary moment in the spiritual teacher's life. Till now, he was believing whatever the theosophical movement says, whatever they believes. He never dissected them. He never introspected them. He never investigated them. But for the first time, the revolutionary in Krishnamurti comes out. So during his journey back to America, he falls into a deep thought. What is truth? What is the belief systems? Why are these belief systems intervening in the path towards truth? He takes a tremendous introspection and investigation to this matter. The whole personality of Krishnamurti transforms from this point on. And after a period of 1 year, Krishnamurti comes down with a terrific and revolutionary news that he is coming out of the Theosophical Society. He abandons the role of world teacher. He dissolves the order of East. He starts lecturing freely to the individuals, to the society at large, with a main aim of transforming the individuals, breaking them free from all sorts of conditionings, from all sorts of authorities and allowing them to think for themselves. So, all his teachings, all his books were available now for us to take a look into it to get the essence of Krishnamurti's teachings. So, I have followed Krishnamurti for a period of 2 years. So, I decided to come up with a genuine review, an unbiased review on Krishnamurti sir. So, before going into it, I would like to say what's my relation to Krishnamurti sir, how I relate to him. See, I have a great admiration for Krishna sir, a great admiration for him, for the personality of what he is. He is a great man indeed, a good hearted person who wanted the individuals to live happily. So, but that doesn't have anything to intervene with my unbiased review. So, now we start. First, let us discuss the pros, the good things in his teachings. Psychological freedom. So, Krishnamurti says an individual has to be psychologically free. He should not fall to any authority. He should not fall into the pit of authority. So, in India, we see the authority is always at the forefront. So, we have the teachers, the lineages. So, tremendous importance is given to the authority rather than one's own experience. Some books, they speak of the authority. We have to adhere to that authority, especially in the religious field. So, Krishnamurti first breaks it out. Then comes the second one, freedom from conditioning. All sorts of conditioning in the form of nationality, religion, caste, creed, everything binds the individual, limits the individual. They will not allow this individual to see what actually is. An individual always looks through these conditionings. So then he obviously will not know what actually is. He is always perceiving something through the bent of the mind which is imposed on him through the generations of information. Then comes prison of words. This is a very deep teaching. In fact, the whole life of human being is consumed with the words, with the thoughts. Without thoughts, human being is nothing. And these thoughts themselves will form a prison around him. You see, each thought is limited. One thought is not another thought. This being limited in nature, when it falls upon the human being mind, he is obviously limited. He cannot transcend these thoughts. He doesn't have any experience beyond this thought except in the sleeping state. So Krishnamurti points out this, that your whole life is a prison of words. Can you see without word? Can you understand something without the word? Without the help of word? Can you remove the word and see what actually is? He presents it with a beautiful example. Now there is a tree and you. So the moment you look at the tree, a word comes out of your mind and stands in between the tree and you, which does not allow you to experience what the tree exactly is. So for this, you have to learn to see without forming the word about the tree, without forming the conclusions about the tree. You just have to feel the experience, what it is. For this, a tremendous attention is needed. So this he described as total attention, not just partial attention, total attention. This in fact is even popularized by Buddhist schools with the name mindfulness. So, this is the highest and grandest of his teachings, in my understanding, where he emphasizes that the lack of attention to the present moment is the cause of whole suffering, both at the level of an individual or at the level of a society. Psychologically speaking, this very total attention without any deviation from any kind of suffering itself frees us from it. You just have to be tremendously attentive to that suffering, the feeling of that suffering. It will set us free. So we do not need to use any word to wipe out this suffering. In fact, that will multiply the suffering, the psychological suffering. Even Jalaluddin Rumi, he speaks out this way, like the flames that you are fearing, that itself will set you free. Fearlessly walk on. And now this attention is an art. It doesn't come that easy. In it is actual silence. In it is the state of being present always. In it is the total understanding of what is. In it is the beauty. It may be whichever fragment of your life, whichever field of your life, be it fear, anxiety, feelings like pain, pleasure, sufferings, enjoyment. If you have to know it fully, you have to be totally attentive. And this total attention is the key to all knowledge. Now, one of the three dimensions of the world, the time, this will get dissolved in the total attention. And when this total attention is practiced to its extreme, even the time and causation will dissolve. This is another matter. And there we experience the oneness, which the Advaita proclaims, the oneness. And in this oneness, there is no conflict at all. For the conflict to arise, there has to be duality, the thing which is other than you, be it an object, be it a thought, or be it a feeling. This is the meditation which Krishnamurti emphasizes, observing wholly to the very moment of the thought and feeling, without any condemnation. Do not condemn it. No condemnation. No denunciation. Just look at the thought as it is. Just observe it fully without cutting it. This observation requires tremendous discipline. And this discipline is not a discipline of conformity. This discipline is free and fluid. Again, this is a very beautiful way of explaining discipline by Krishnamurti. Whereas if you look at the ancient teachers, those orthodoxy teachers, so for them discipline means adhering to some scripture, adhering to authority, accepting them as true, and then implementing in the life. But with Krishnamurti, the discipline is not conformity. The discipline is free and fluid. What a beautiful observation. This deserves a Nobel Prize for him. Then, Krishnamurti speaks about self-examination, introspection. And this is a very evident point to notice, especially among the religious leaders, the religious people. They are greatly concerned about examining the religious texts, then understanding themselves, then examining themselves, then seeing it for themselves. They spend a good amount of time into analyzing the scriptures, into analyzing the texts, writing learned philosophies out of them, and go on exaggerating the personalities. Then another beautiful teaching, finding out for ourselves the truth of life, and the doubts has to be found out in ourselves for ourselves. Nobody can transmit to us. This is a beautiful teaching. Everything that is truth in the life, it has to be found out for yourselves. You yourself have to find out what is true for yourself. All your doubts, you alone have to dissolve them. Nobody will do it for you. This is similar to the teachings of Buddha. In fact, the first education principle enunciated by Sri Aurobindo, he says, nothing can be taught. Nobody can give you the teaching. Nobody can transmit the teaching. One has to learn for oneself. Another another teaching, another pro, be tremendously alone in search of the truth. In understanding of truth, you have to be tremendously alone. You shouldn't depend on any external authority blindly. The moment you depend on authority, then you will not inquire, you will take it for granted. Then, rejection of accepting. Simple acceptance of traditional knowledge and conforming to pattern brought forward from generations will not help in living an alert and awakeful life. This can be seen in Indian society, where the more adherence is given to tradition, more adherence is given to tradition than scientific investigation by oneself. And rejection of dogmatic life. Simple performance of dogmas and rituals, going to temples, doesn't bring any good to anyone. It will not bring anyone closer to the truth. And this is his famous saying, like, temples, mosques, churches become more important for those who have lost the true touch with the nature. See the beauty of this. God is immanent in the nature. The very expression of nature, God is the very expression in the nature. Now, people seem to have lost the sensitivity to the nature, but they are interested in going to temples, churches, mosques. Then, inclusivity, the universality of humanity. He says it is not the clovers who help the world, but the innocent, the sensitive, free minded people who help the world. This is very true. The clovers, the selfish people, they only care about themselves, be it at the cost of society, be it at the cost of anybody's life. They want to aggrandize themselves, they want to enjoy the things for themselves, so they will put whole welfare of the society at stake. But the one who is innocent, who is insensitive, who is free minded, he is the one who is going to help the world. Now comes the cons of his teachings. Very interesting subject. The first one, he is unaware of the other ways of doing the same thing. He has got into a groove and he doesn't look anything apart from that. He simply sticks on to his own way of negation, negating everything. Not this, not this, not this, no path. All other means are simply rejected by him, which in itself brings the conflict into the society, which he is trying to solve. So, the major work of Krishnamurti, the teachings of Krishnamurti, is to dissolve the conflicts that are already persisting in the society. But this kind of negation, this kind of rejection by itself brings the conflict. Obviously, for suppose let us look at the religious condition in our world. We have many religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity. So just think of rejecting some religion. What is the effect of it? What is the response from that particular community? So he thinks if we reject all the religions, if everybody abandon the religion, all the belief systems, then everything will be proper. No, in fact it does, but it will not work practically. So the practical way of doing it is shown by Sri Ramakrishna. It is through harmony, harmony of religion, harmony in the humanity itself. This is the one which has to be popularized. People will always have a different set of thoughts which are contradictory to each other. So the way of solving is not to negate someone, but to have a harmony, to respect for the other one. But you can practice your own thing. You can go through your own understanding without hurting the other. This is practicable. This in fact can bring welfare to the humanity rather than negation. So why Krishnamurti has negated? One reason: lack of complete knowledge about the truth. Knowledge here I'm speaking in terms of experience. He hasn't seen the truth from 360-degree angle. That might be the problem. Then rejection of all methodologies, all systems is in itself a method. Krishnaji goes on rejecting methods. He says method makes a mind dull. What does it mean by a method? Doing certain thing in certain way. It is called method, practically speaking. So I ask you, those who are an employees who are working in your offices or any field, those who are doing certain things in certain a way, they have seen learning skill benefits over a period of time. They have improved in doing it that way. It is not mechanical. When it becomes mechanical, when we do not do it with attentiveness. When our body is here, mind is somewhere else, and when we are performing that duty, of course then the mind becomes dull. But when you are absolutely attentive in doing what you are doing, even if it be a method like any vipassana technique, breathing techniques, japa, these things, if you do it consciously, it will reduce the thoughts, the words which he has mentioned as prison of words, which I have discussed in the prose. Yeah, this is the method to reduce the words when you stick to one japa. So just see it for yourself carefully. When you are sticking to a word or a nama japa, what you are doing, you are reducing all the thoughts to one thought. So that means you are saving tremendous energy, and eventually even this one thought can be dissolved. This word also will be dissolved. That is the culminating point, which is pointed out in the scriptures in the Vedanta. Then he says truth is a pathless land. So truth is a pathless land. Then rejecting all the paths also is a path by itself. Is it not? If you say it is not a path, then ask your followers. See today, they are following you. You never wanted someone to follow anyone, but your followers in return are following you. The same pattern is continuing. They reject all the methods, they reject all the paths, they just go on repeating you. Is it not a path? Is it not the pattern? Then the thing which you call as truth, it is absolute in nature. It is not affected by time, space, causation, in whichever society you are living and whichever path of life, whichever way of life you are into. It doesn't take you away from the truth. Correct? So truth being absolute in nature, it should be available for everybody's perception irrespective of path which he is following. Simple. Rejection of progression in the field of relativity. So Krishna says, like, you cannot progress towards truth. It is not a gradual progress. I agree. It is in the highest level. True truth doesn't have has nothing to do with individual's progress. I agree. But have you explained it properly, sir? What have you said? Reject all the progression. All progression is all delusion of a mind. There is no progression. So let us take this example. Vedanta gives this example. Yes, truth is as it is. It is not affected by an individual's progress. But the way they have explained, assume your mind to be a mirror. Sunlight is falling on that mirror. Sunlight is as it is, but look at the condition of the mirror. The mirror is dirty and the mirror is moving, right? So first thing what we have to do, stop the moving mirror. That means stop the deviation thoughts. Then clean the mirror, purify the mirror. So the sunlight is as it is, but the moment you start purifying the mirror, the sunlight starts reflecting in the mirror. This is the way of progression told by Vedanta. Much more lucid way, much more comprehensive way. So then, blind rejection of whole texts. So Krishna says rejects all the texts, all the literature that humanity has produced. So sir, do you think is it a sensible thing to do? So just by blind rejection of all the wealth of texts which we have got over generations, will it solve the problem by itself? If you believe in rejection, if you believe just this rejection of other people's opinions is the only way, then why do you expect somebody to listen to you? Why are you lecturing? Why are you transmitting your own opinions? It is rather a narrow judgment to think whatever I say is free of conditioning and whatever others say it is full of conditioning and conformity. Take Buddha for example. Buddha's teachings are much more sensible and they are much more positive and constructive compared to Krishnamurti's teachings. Buddha says, be a light unto yourself. And he says, in these passing times, whatever you come across, if you come to an understanding that it will bring good to you and good to the whole of humanity, Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya, then take it, apply it. Look at the beauty of that teaching. But what did you say? I saw one of the Krishnamurti's conversation with a Buddhist scholar. He's rejecting Buddha's teaching as saying this will condition you. This will condition you. When a person who said be a light unto yourself, when his teaching itself becomes a conditioning, then what about you? Aren't your teachings conditioning then? How are they different from Buddha's teachings? In fact, whatever you have said, it is already contained in Buddhism, it is already contained in Hinduism. There is nothing that you have said uh, something a new teaching to the world. So from this, it is sensible for me to think the ancient rishis, in fact Swami Vivekananda, he said, if you find something good in others, wherever, do not imitate it, absorb it in its own, absorb the things in your own way. Look at the beauty of the teachings. He says you can stick to your own individuality, your own way of thinking, your own way of investigating the things, all the things, it's fine. That doesn't mean you have to reject everything. If you find something good, you need not to imitate also. You can bring it in your own way, you can absorb it in your own way. And in rejecting everything, you yourself is setting a system for others to follow. This pattern of rejection, this tradition of rejection you have already set up. In fact, the followers of Krishnamurti sir, They go on rejecting everything in the social media about every religion, every philosophy, whichever they come across, their way is just cut it off. I don't know how far it is sensible for them to do that. Then lack of expression. I know Krishnamurti sir has come up with some kind of spiritual oneness experience, but when we see his expressions, when we study his expressions, we feel the expressions are not sufficient enough to reach the heart of the listener. Right? Let us take this example. He says the observer is the observed. It is in fact a very grand inquiry. But look at the way, the intent in which Krishna sir is saying. The observer is the observed. Yes. So now he is speaking it from a relative lens. So based on the perception of the observer will be perceived. Correct? The image what you have seen out is the implication of your own mind. In fact, this was found ages ago. We have it in the Hindu scriptures, we have it in the Buddhist scriptures. This principle was enunciated long enough. In fact, they said the mind is the world is the mind. The both are not different. But there comes the next step, the higher level. Not from relative lens, but the absolute standpoint. The observer and observed are the different. What does it say? The observer and observed both are dissolved into that one consciousness. So here they are not different. There is nothing to be called different. The observer and observed is the same. Upanishads have declared this standpoint as well, which Krishna sir has failed to express. And Krishna sir has said, when we are aware, when we are totally attentive, time dissolves and there is complete silence in which you are completely absent. And what is that I which is going to be absent? If it is an individual I, the assumed I, if that becomes absent, yes, I understand. But the question is, when you say there is nothing in that, who is the one who is perceiving that nothing? Who has reached that state of nothing? Who is experiencing that nothing? Who is expressing that nothingness? Who is the witness of that nothingness? If you say there is no witness, then I'll ask you, then how come you come upon that experience of nothingness? There should be some evidence, there should be some witness, right? That witness is called as Atman, I. In fact, I have seen one of the Krishna sir's lecture where he is mercilessly cutting off the word Atman. He said the ancient Hindus are very clever. They invented the word called Atman, an object. He is thinking it from the standpoint of an object. He assumed an Atman to be an object. The Atman is the Sanskrit word. Its literal translation is the feeling of I, the consciousness of I. And he says it is gullible, it is querulous, it is meaningless, unreasonable, that when we are investigating, when we are inquiring, we find that there is no other object left out in this nothingness. Then how come these people come upon and say there is a something called Atman? This Atman is not something, an object, sir. You are in fact very speedy in forming judgments without having complete information on hand. First understand what does it mean by the word Atman. It is simply referring to as that subjective consciousness, I. In fact, you have said now there is nothing. So who has perceived that nothingness? That I. Of course, it's not an individual I. So when you speak about that nothingness, I am asking you, is that nothingness itself is speaking about nothingness then? How scientific unscientific it is? This is the proof to say the lack of expression in you. Then lack of pointing to the right cause. Krishnas are always takes up one fragment, like anger, pleasure, pain, something he will take up, and just he will go on giving lectures about it. But he will not come to the root cause from which all these are springing up, the I. He will always take up one of this fragment and he says, We have to understand totally the nature and structure of it, the whole movement of this, otherwise we will not be free. Where does it come up, sir? This pain, pleasure, even the thoughts, feelings, from where did all this spring up? To where this all rooted back to? Ancient sages were in fact more enlightening when it comes to this discussion. So when you are troubled with n number of things, it is not sensible to go on operate each thing individually. In fact, they have rooted us back to the cause, the sole cause from which all these thoughts, all these feelings start springing up. Dissolve that one I, the problem ends. So now I must be there who is knowing all these thoughts, all these feelings. Without me, who is the knower of these things? Where is the validity of their existence without me out there? And you will say your thought, feeling, and experience. When someone asks Krishnaji, what is a human being? He says, human being is nothing but a bundle of thoughts, all feelings, all information, or experience. How shallow it is. In the relative standpoint, I understand if you put it in a negative way, but you tend to speak it in a positive term, like he is of all this. Why do you say like that, sir? If you become a one thought, then you cannot become another thought. If I myself become a thought, how can I see another thought? Is it even possible for me to see another thought if I myself become an inner thought? So without addressing and knowing this fundamental I, which is the abode to all these thoughts and feelings and so on, what is the purpose of individually analyzing your thoughts into where it leads to? It will just lead us to pure intellectual gymnasticism. It will not lead us to anywhere. So when a tradition, not dogmatically but scientifically with reason and logic, provides us an understanding and a way for us to test, reconcile the truths enunciated by them, it is always better to test them. It is always better to embrace them. The narrowness of negation of I am so and so following so and so is immature. Yes, but there are people who, for the purpose of relative world, move around the world as I am so and so, but deep within them, they know what they are. And there is one distinguishing, unique principle about India, that they see unity in the diversity. This is coming from Advaita. Look at the beauty of this principle. In fact, if you had looked at this principle and if you have taught this principle to the world, it would have done a greater help to the world. The principle is looking the unity in the diversity. The very nature itself is diverse. You cannot negate the nature, but what you can do, You can assert the unity in this diversity. That is the way to maintain harmony and peace in the society, not by negating them. Now, negation of religions outside is fine, it can be acceptable. But how can you negate the thoughts that two individual possesses? Obviously, thoughts will be anyway different. Now, can you say this is a conflict in the religious content? Religion has nothing to do with us. Even in fact, in a family, two persons will have two different thoughts. What is the way of solving it? Negating or respecting their own thoughts and living your own life, which is called harmony. Which is the better way, I ask? So the way out is not negation of this and that, but understanding the diversity and having a mutual respect. This is the highest maturity. Then there is no issue at all. But negation has the problem. So you have not understood this beautiful principle of unity in diversity in the relative field, which in itself ends the conflict altogether. Thank you.